Hi everyone, it's Tarso here from Positive and Spirit Center, coming live at 6:15 on a Saturday. We're slowly gonna start preparing for our live of Positive and Spirit Center. And hopefully we got some people joining us, or otherwise some people can watch later as this video gets recorded and stored in the Facebook of Positive and Spirit Center. So we wait another 2 minutes to start. So if you're watching on this recording, so you can move fast forward these 2 minutes when we start the lecture, the talk. Have one person arriving. I'm not sure who it is. I can't see who it is. Hopefully my microphone is good. I think I'm going to put my earpiece as well. And I think it makes a little bit more. Continue. Oh no. Did a bit of problems with my phone. Okay, it's back now. Got my little cat coming into the live. Apologies for that. So, okay, it's 6:15. I'm going to start the live with a connection to my spiritual guides and to the Positive and Spirit Center guides, spiritual guides that we can my little bit of thoughts. And thank you for the opportunity to be here to do this live and talk about the topics that involve spiritism and spiritualism. And thank you, mentors of all the countries, and Jesus Christ, mentor or governor of earth, that can enlighten us. And we start our life. So I can't see who is arriving, so if you want to say hello, just go ahead, say hello. But today we will talk about knowledge, intelligence, and with the aim of these topics to cover how we're using this knowledge and intelligence, our intelligence in today's world, this modern world, quite a complicated one. And the formal topic of this talk is all I know is that I know nothing. And this statement is actually attributed to Socrates. Socrates was a philosopher, a martyr, and he was sentenced to death in 400 BC in Athens. And he was persecuted for corrupting the minds of the youth. We hear and kind of thinking here, we heard so good things about Socrates, right? Philosopher. He was the most inspiring person from that time. But he was charged with those charges, and he was sentenced to death. And but he never wrote anything. Hi, hello, guys. I can't see who is arriving, but welcome. So Socrates never wrote anything down, and he was, all his talks and his ideas was actually written by Plato and some other student, which I forgot his name. It's quite a complicated name. But those charges, he was Ellen. Hi, Ellen. Thank you for coming for the talk. One of the main charges against Socrates, it was a reason for that was that he didn't believe in the gods of Athens the way it was shown by those in that time, that would show those gods like with human characteristics, with human defects, being dishonest and petty. And he says this is not logical, because Socrates was so logical that he couldn't accept superpower and goddess and high level spirits, souls or gods, to have human characteristics. He said this doesn't make sense, because these gods they must be good, they must be promote love, they must promote the most beautiful things that a human could think in achieving, and not showing those characteristics, those traits of a human being. So, and because of that, he was sentenced of death, and he was persecuted because of the fanaticism by that time and the religious prejudices of that time. And his this statement about all I know is that I know nothing. If you think about our lives, it's actually applied everything what we do. When we are going deeper into a topic or a subject, or in our work, or even spirituals, when we start looking at small things, we start understanding that how little we know about a topic, because there's so much more out there that we don't understand. And we start looking from the areas of the universe, laws of nature, laws that govern everything behind this material world, the spirit, the spiritual, the soul, ourselves, reincarnation. We know just a little bit glimpses. We know a lot about some of these topics from reincarnation with the help of the spirits and those spiritist books, but there's so much more. So it challenges us to learn, and we understand that, hold on, don't think we are so smart, because you'll be very unwise to think just because we know a little, we know everything, because there's much more. And we get caught, and even in small situations where we have an idea, we have a presumption, we have this view, and then we learn other views around this topic, and we're thinking, oh, I actually was mistaken, and jumping conclusions. There's so much, I didn't have the other view. So it happens all this in our life. So, and Socrates was showing to us that it is present in our lives. And Socrates was very interesting. It was so advanced for his time. And Allan Kardec, the one that wrote all the books, 5 books that defines the Spiritism, the codification of Spiritism, even goes further and says that Socrates was a precursor of Spiritism, because his ideas so advanced for that time and people couldn't understand. So, for example, he promoted the idea of to know thyself is the beginning of wisdom. To know yourself is the beginning of wisdom. This was the main teachings of Socrates, was ask everything. Ask yourself, do I know this? Who I am? Do I really understand that? Hold on, but if this, if yes, if this, if that, because that would bring you to the direction of wisdom. And this is, and from a correlation to Spiritism, is so deeply there with Spiritism, because Spiritism does what it does. It focuses on intimate reform, which is basically self-awareness, to understand ourselves, understand our limitations, understand our values, understand those values or those behaviors that we don't like in us and make us unhappy, and then we can release and maybe transform ourselves without punishment, but just for understanding who we are, and then we can transform ourselves in better beings. Yes, Socrates was very wise. He was considered by the oracle of the time the most wise person in all Athens, in all the world. And then he asked himself, and I'm just following from someone who wrote that Socrates was very wise. So he said, I'm not the most wise person. That's impossible. because he was always asking and doubting that, because there was so much that he needed to learn. And he started going everywhere and asked people about the guy who would make the arts in terms of making jars or sculptures, and then someone was making looking at economies and stuff like that. And he realized that, wow, I'm wiser than that guy, but myself, and the reason I'm wiser than him, because he pretends that he knows everything while he doesn't know everything, and I'm guy that I don't know everything and don't pretend I know everything. So very philosophical from Socrates, and very humble from him, because he was always asking himself how can he could be better. And other things, amazing things. Back then, he was already had that idea about the immortal soul, about this body, and he did believe that there was we had a previous passage and would go back to somewhere and then come back again, because he could not perceive that we, with all our differences, we could have only one life, right? It wouldn't be fair. It would be illogical, because he was so logical person. And that's why I align so much with Socrates on that terms, because it's so much illogical if you have only one chance. And that's all about reincarnation. And again, we talk about applying knowledge and intelligence about everything in our life, in terms of moral values, in terms of religion, in terms of science. It's about having the logical faith, intelligence in terms of faith, applying knowledge and intelligence in terms of doing charity. Because we are so complex human beings. How do we make sure we help someone without touching, without impacting the fears of that person, instead of touching and impacting their ego as well? So we have all these the things that we have to think about it and apply intelligence everywhere in our life. So it's our duty to actually improve and progress in that knowledge, but with the guidance of a moral person, the moral person values, because otherwise we could end up in such issues that we've done in the past, and we're very dark ages of humanity, of using bombs and other things to destruct, instead of promote construction and promoting development. So we have to be very careful with intelligence and be guided with those moral values. I'm jumping around a little bit, but let's keep going. So another amazing thing that Socrates believed was about the demons. He believed in demons, but back then the word demons didn't mean evil. It meant an angel that would bring a message from God. And it's all about the beliefs of spirits. It's about the communications from the other side. So he was so advanced from his time. So if you look at 100 years past this last 100 years, we see that we gained so much intelligence, so much knowledge. It's amazing how we have evolved so fast. But we see that this development has really been very strong in which only one area of knowledge, intellectual and intelligence. The area of values and moral values has not been developing that fast. And there's amazing saying that is that we need the two, and the two are representing as the two wings, so you can fly like a bird. Means the fly is developing like a spiritual person and developing in your life, and complete ourselves. So the two wings are intelligence and moral values. And the two are two wings that can make us develop and fly and be enlightened. And how we observe this is that we can see how much from the past has happened. We can see still today we're using these excuses about acquiring arms, guns, machines, constructing war machines with the excuse to protect the nation, with the excuse to protect ourselves, where we should just remove everything, all these guns, all these war machines from everyone, and instead of acquiring them. And what the first world countries do is use that. We can't ignore that today, and that's why we see the moral values being applied to. So it looks like we're not intelligent by that perspective, really, because we can't be intelligent if we don't have the two wings. Is that they develop themselves and making billions of dollars by using and throwing these guns and this destructive war power in the hands of underdeveloped countries, because they are in their own social debates and social wars, internal wars and conflicts with their neighbors. So utilizing that power to making billions of money and manipulation. So we can't just let that unnoticed. So it looks like we're not very intelligent, using our intelligence very well, even though we look at very wise, very intelligent from that scientific perspective. And there's more, right? So we start looking at other areas. For example, looking how we're treating the planet from extracting resources. Amazing when you start looking at the overfishing. So I don't want to make it, not making political statements. It's just looking at our behavior, how we can contribute to all this by investing in areas that we can be more aware of our planet. So it's not wise when you start extracting so much that it turns in a point, it's going to be a tipping point where the planet cannot recover, where nature cannot recover. It's not very intelligent of us to do this. And we start thinking, where is our intelligence on that? It is because we are blind by our ego, right? About what we see close to us instead of looking at a holistic view. And more like in terms of our individual, what we perceive, we start looking at how much time we spend in things that are important for us. For example, material things, they are essential for our survival, but that it cannot dictate the way we live a life. Because when you see your years and over years passing through, and you get to the end and you look back, and you're gonna say, well, I didn't focus on the relationships that I should have focused because of little details or little discussions and things like that, or because I had more focus on acquiring material things. I'm gonna think, well, I lost all my time. It can be very late, and then what end up to be, it's gonna feel empty inside you about the time you lost to acquire what you should be focusing on. And that's very sad. And we start, mainly when we lose someone goes to the spiritual world, and then you feel that and it's really empty. So, and that's not very intelligent of us. So it's about waking up and being more aware. And it's all about what Socrates says about self-awareness and utilizing that intelligence. In the Gospel According to Spiritism, written by Kardec, which is one of the books for the base for Spiritism, is the spirits come and say, how should we use our intelligence? From a very basic point of view, he says, I'll read that part, in his designs, God has enabled you to be born into an environment where you are able to develop your intelligence. It's because he wills for you to employ it for the good of all. It's a mission that has been given you. It's a mission in giving to you, putting in your hands this instrument that will help you, and in your turn, to develop the intelligence lagging behind to others and lead them to God for goodness. Lead them to goodness. So it's about not using intelligence for a selfishness, an ego point of view, but in our perspective for ourselves and others around us. How can we make an example of that? There's nothing written here. But using our money in a way that we can if you have lots of money, instead of just putting things that just giving return to you, it can give return to others, where you develop jobs, where you start a little business, where you create jobs and you create things that can be helping others. It's about using the material things, your intelligence, or working towards a specific idea or movement. It's about using intelligence to do something good for society or for a group. But sometimes and most of these COVID times, we kind of be pushed to be reclusive in our homes, and we need to now to change. Finally, we are out of COVID here, closure almost there, but to get out there and do more. So it's our mission. So what's the role of religion into all this? Spiritism as being a science, religion, and philosophical point of view, is it help us to observe, it should be for all the religions, is to see the spiritual truth. What's behind all this? To make understand the reincarnation, and the Spiritism does believe, which it gives sense about all this diversity that we have, that we need to care about everyone that's around us. The role of religion is about providing truths about the spiritual world, but then helping science to go in the same direction. And so aligned with Spiritism because it has always been done that. Spiritisms have developed things that found specific parts of the brain and depicted into the books, for example, pineal gland, that today we're discovering. There's a lot of help that can come even from the spiritual side of things. And today we know, now going back to science, psychology now understand how intelligent you are, how intelligent I am. There are 3 ways to define that. Even science already so developed on that from a psychological point of view, is IQ, which is your coefficient of intelligence, the EQ, which is emotional intelligence, SQ, which is spiritual intelligence. All these now are scientific researches that have been done. Now, one of the last ones was SQ, spiritual intelligence. I think it's been more than 20 years now. Donna Zohan, she wrote the book first time, and she's got many books, and it has been applied everywhere in corporation. Everywhere in a corporation. It's very interesting books, just search for it. Spiritual Intelligence, Donna Zohan. And start with IQ, right? So IQ started with Alfred Binet, one of them that made the most of the research, and said that everyone is the same. Everyone can have the same capabilities. And you know this is illogical, but it measures IQ, right? So if you think about one person, not against IQ, but the way it was portrayed, that everyone is the same. Everyone has the same capability to learn everything. Yes, potentially, but our body has limitations. You think about, I can play soccer like Ronaldinho, maybe not. If I can play violin like a 4-year-old, these prodigy kids, when they play like Mozart. No, I cannot, because I don't have that ability. But hold on, the abilities you learn only on this life, according to the materialism. How is that possible? It's because we bring that baggage with us from other lives. We bring these capabilities. How a 4-year-old could play violin as an added professional, or piano, right? So these are the logical explanations. So let's move to emotional intelligence. So emotional intelligence, but we're gonna focus on spiritual intelligence. Is that EQ, emotional intelligence, focus on deal with emotions. In how do we deal with? How do we deal when someone's upset? How do we deal with someone is nervous? So, and Australians have a great ability to deal with emotions. They don't take personal. So I think it's about not taking person. But let's look at a spiritual intelligence. Spiritual intelligence goes beyond emotions, but goes around the values of empathy, dignity at workplace, respect to others. And again, this was done, research was done by Donna Zohan, as being accepted by all the scientific areas in terms of psychology. And a lot of organizations are using that. How do you have empathy at work? Or you're only always competitive, trying to be the best than everyone? In that case, you're going to find happiness at the end of the tunnel. You got to have empathy. You got to have compassion. You got to have, and talks about compassion, talks about empathy, talks about being holistic. All these aspects, which now are kind of very aligning with lots of religions, including Spiritism, and we're going to cover some of them very quickly. So there's 12 of them. That spirit intelligence covers it about self-awareness. Again, about first one, self-awareness. It measures you how spiritual intelligent you are by analyzing how self-aware you are. And it's amazing. And to be successful, you got to have the 3 of them. You can only have IQ because you need to have EQ, and you have to have now SQ, being spiritual, to be really successful. And if you analyze most of the successful and happy people, you find those 3. So self-awareness in terms of understand your values, my beliefs, your motivations. What are they? So one can evolve spiritually, based on equality, love, and peace. Celebrating diversity, valuing others and respect. Compassion comes there, empathy for others. Well, because we're going to need one day for ourselves. It will come to you and to me. So there's a saying that without charity, there is no salvation. That comes directly there in compassion. Charity in terms of having empathy to others. Spiritual intelligence analyzes you and me, how holistic you are, understand your part in your society, in your group, at work, in the cosmos. The cosmos is written in there, spiritual intelligence. Learning from diversity, learning from our mistakes. Don't let us get stuck. It's amazing how it deals with that. Ability to learn from your mistakes. Have courage to stand up and walk. Doesn't matter what it is. And we have so many falls that it takes a while, but we do. We stand up again. Be independent, have free will. Hold to your convictions is part of that, but thinking about the good for everyone, for the great good. Always that, because we can get lost with our own personal reasons, but for the great for the great good, for the great of others. Ask, and interesting this one, guys. Why ask for everything? Why? One of the key things for Spiritism is there's no blind faith. It's about being this intelligent faith. Ask everything. Why reincarnation? Does it make sense for you? Let's talk about. There's so many things in Spiritism. And come to our talks. Come to other groups. There are groups that discuss these topics to question everything. And being flexible and be humble. Well, I'm going to, so this is spiritual intelligence. So our question is how intelligent you are from a spiritual point of view. So those analyses, so it helps us to analyze that there's so much stuff, and you start looking at this, wow, if you start going deep down into spiritual intelligence, is that I do not know everything. All I know is that I know nothing. I know something, but not everything. And bringing, more important, the self-awareness, so we can transform ourselves for make us happier. Gaining courage, refine our feelings, trying to find happiness in others, be more aware of others instead of only ourselves, and look at those spiritual, intelligent topics to help us in our relationships. So I will leave you guys with this message. we come to the end of the live. So hopefully for those that are there, thank you guys to be there. Thank you, Ellen. And I can't see who was there from Paul Stevens' perspective. But thank you for joining us. Bye.